There's a rule Daniel taught me about starting seeds, and it goes against everything you've seen on the internet. Most people grow an avocado from a pit by jamming 3 toothpicks into it and balancing it over a glass of water. Daniel just shook his head when I showed him that. He's been sprouting seeds from kitchen scraps for 50 years, and he doesn't own a single toothpick for it. His way sprouts a thick, healthy taproot in about 3 weeks. Instead of the 6 or 8, you get the toothpick weight. Today, I'll walk you through exactly how he does it step by step so you can grow a real tree from one grocery store avocado. And stick with me to the end, because I'll share the one thing Daniel adds to the water that nobody on those gardening videos ever mentions. I'll be honest with you. When Daniel showed me his way the very first time, he had a thick white taproot pushing down out of that pit in about 3 weeks. The toothpick trick you see all over the internet takes 6, sometimes 8 weeks to do the same job, if it does it at all. And Daniel's been sprouting seeds from kitchen scraps for 50 years, long before anybody thought to film it. Here's why most people get it wrong. That pit balanced on 3 toothpicks over a glass sits cold on a windowsill, dry on its exposed top, soaking in light all day. That's the opposite of everything a seed actually wants. Daniel's rule is plain. A seed sprouts in the dark and the damp the way it would underground. It never floating in the light over a glass of water. Once that clicked for me, the whole thing finally made sense. I'll walk you through this in 5 steps, from a bare grocery store pit to a potted seedling on your windowsill. And remember, here in Lancaster County, Zone 6B, this becomes a potted tree you bring indoors, not an outdoor tree. Stick with me to the end, because I'll share the one thing Daniel adds to the water that nobody on those gardening videos ever mentions. Step 1, choose and prepare the seed. Start with a fully ripe avocado from the grocery store, the kind that gives a little when you press your thumb against it. A ripe fruit means a ripe seed, and a ripe seed sprouts willingly. Cut around the fruit and twist it open, but go easy with the knife so you don't score the pit underneath. Lift the pit out whole, then rinse it gently under cool water until the green flesh is gone. Now here's the part most American gardeners skip entirely. That pit has a thin brown papery coat on it, like the skin on an onion. Peel it off. Underneath you'll find a smooth cream-colored seed, sometimes with a faint reddish blush. Daniel told me that coat is the seed's overcoat, and pulling it off lets water reach the seed faster and shaves real days off your sprouting time. Be careful here though. You're peeling the papery skin, not scrubbing the living seed beneath it. Scrub too hard and you damage the very tissue the root grows from. The last thing to do is find the ends. The pointed end is the top where the stem will come from. The flat, wider end is the bottom where the root pushes down. Get that turned around and you'll sit there for weeks waiting on a seed that's trying to grow upside down. I'll be straight with you. My father grew everything in straight rows from a paper seed packet, and it never once crossed my mind you could pull a whole tree out of something headed for the compost. Daniel changed that for me. Once you've got a peeled pit and you know top from bottom, the prep is done, and it took you all of 2 minutes. Step 2, build Daniel's sprouting bundle. This is the heart of the whole method, the part that throws out those 3 toothpicks and the glass of water for good. Take a clean cloth or a folded paper towel and dampen it. Wring it out so it's damp, not dripping. Wrap your peeled pit up in it snug so the cloth is touching every side of the seed. Then set that little bundle inside a glass jar with the lid resting loose on top, or a zip bag with the air pressed out. That holds the moisture right up against the seed. Now carry it to a warm, dark spot, not a windowsill. This is where I have to stop you, because every instinct you were ever taught says, put a sprouting seed in the sunniest window in the house. Daniel just shook his head at that. A seed down in the soil never sees the sun until the shoot breaks the surface. Underground, it's dark, it's warm, it's damp, and that's exactly what your jar is mimicking now. Set it in a sunny window instead, and you'll cook that cloth dry by noon. Install the whole thing. The failure here is simple, and it's the one nearly everybody makes. Leaving it in the light. Tuck it in the dark instead. When you set that bundle in its warm, dark corner and walk away, you've already done the single thing that takes weeks off the clock. No toothpicks, no glass, just damp and dark, the way the ground does it. Step 3, tend it warm, dark, and damp for 3 weeks. The pit's in its bundle now, and it needs 3 things held steady: warmth, moisture, and darkness. For warmth, you want 70 to 75 degrees. The top of the refrigerator is just about perfect, because that spot runs warm from the motor underneath and it's well out of the light. Near a wood stove works too, just not so close it bakes the seed. Daniel keeps his by the cook stove, where it stays warm day and night. For moisture, open the bundle every 3 days and check the cloth. If it's drying out, dampen it again. Wrung out, never soaked. A cloth that goes bone dry even once will kill the tender root tip right as it's emerging, and the whole seed stalls or rots. A cloth that's sopping wet goes slimy and grows mold, and that's just as deadly. Damp and snug is the target every single time you check. And while you're in there every 3 days, take a page from Daniel and just look. He walks walks his garden every morning with a cup of coffee, not working, only watching, and he told me once, "You can't tend what you don't see, Bill." Same with this little pit. Around the 2-week mark, the flat bottom end splits open like a seam. Then a thick white taproot pushes down out of that split. By about 3 weeks, that root is sturdy and strong. Thick the way Daniel's always come in, not the thin, slow thread the toothpick method gives you 6 or 8 weeks later. Open that bundle, see a fat white root reaching down, and you'll know the warmth and the damp and the dark did exactly what they were meant to. Now, if what I'm walking you through here is making sense, and you're starting to see how the Amish do this differently than the way most of us were taught, let me pause for a second. Once that taproot is going, the soil you pot it into decides whether this little tree thrives or just limps along, and that's exactly what folks who are tired of the chemical treadmill tend to overlook. They want a tip when what they really need is a system. I put the whole thing in my book, The 30-Day Amish Pest-Proof Garden Protocol. Chapter 4 is all about building soil that's biologically alive, the same composting Daniel does, so your young plant grows up strong. It's $17 at backyardbuildbooks.com. If you're watching on your TV, grab your phone and point it at the QR code on screen. Take your time finding it. I'm no rush. I'll be right here. If you're on your phone or laptop, the link's down in the description. All right, let's keep going. Step 4. Pot the sprout. Wait until that taproot is 2 to 3 inches long and you can see a little stem starting to rise from the pointed top. That's your signal the seedling is ready for soil. Use a 1-gallon pot with a drainage hole and fill it with good potting soil. Make a hole, set the pit in roots down, and here's the part people get wrong. Leave the top third of the pit sticking up above the soil line. Don't bury the whole thing. An avocado pit buried all the way just sits in the wet and rots, and you lose every bit of those 3 weeks. The top third stays up in the air, the bottom 2/3 and that taproot go down into the soil. Firm the soil gently around it and water it in until it drains out the bottom. Daniel doesn't fuss over fancy containers. He's potted seedlings in everything from a clay pot to an old enamel bucket with a hole punched in the bottom. The pot doesn't matter. The exposed shoulder and the living soil do. Daniel told me once that a seed knows which way is up better than we do. Our only job is to give it soil and get out of the way. Once that pit is nestled in with its top above the line and you've watered it in, you've got yourself a potted avocado tree. That's a real milestone. You've gone from kitchen scrap to a growing plant. Step 5, grow it on. Now the tree wants light, all it can get. Set it in your brightest window, the one that gets bright direct sun for a good part of the day. This is the flip from the sprouting stage. In the jar, it needed darkness. Now as a leafed seedling, it needs sun and plenty of it. Water it when the top inch of soil is dried out. Push your finger in to check, the way Daniel checks just about everything by feel rather than by the calendar. Too much water and the roots rot. Let it dry an inch down between drinks. When the stem reaches about 6 inches tall, pinch out the very top growing tip with your fingers. I know it feels backwards to cut a plant you've waited weeks for, but pinching that tip forces the tree to branch out and fill in bushy instead of shooting up as one lonely stalk. A seedling left in weak light with no pinch turns into a tall, floppy single stem that can't even hold itself up. Bright light and a pinch at 6 inches give you a sturdy, full little tree instead. And here in Lancaster County, remember this is a house plant. Our first frost lands mid to late October, and an avocado will not survive a Pennsylvania winter out in the cold. Bring it indoors before that first frost every single year, and it'll keep right on growing on the windowsill through the snow. Do that, and you've got a real avocado tree grown from one grocery store pit standing green in your window while it's white outside. Now let me save you some heartache, because there are 3 mistakes I see over and over, and any one of them will sink the whole thing. The first one is letting that cloth dry out even once. The minute the wrap goes dry, the tender tip of that emerging root dies back and the seed either stalls out completely or turns to rot. The fix is simple. Check it every 3 days and keep that cloth damp, wrung out, never soaking. The second mistake is keeping it too cool. A lot of folks set the pit on a windowsill where it's sitting at 60 degrees, and at that temperature, sprouting stretches past 2 months if it ever happens at all. Daniel keeps his bundle at 70 to 75 degrees near a heat source, and you should too. Find that warm, dark spot. The third mistake is the one that breaks my heart because it's the most common. People give up too early. They peak at 4 weeks, see nothing on top, decide the pit's a dud, and toss a perfectly good seed in the compost. Here's the thing. The split and the taproot happen down at the flat bottom end, not up top, and they're happening before you ever see a green green shoot. So be patient and check the bottom of the pit before you give up on it. Avoid those 3 and your odds of a thick, healthy taproot go way, way up. Now, I told you at the start I'd share the one thing Daniel adds to the water that nobody on those gardening videos ever mentions. It's willow water. Daniel walks down to the willows along his creek, cuts a couple of handfuls of pencil-thick first-year twigs, and chops them into 1-inch pieces. He packs them into a quart jar, covers them with water, and lets the whole thing steep for 24 to 48 hours. Then he uses that water to dampen the sprouting cloth instead of plain tap water. Here's why it works, and it's worth understanding. Willow naturally carries indole butyric acid, which is a rooting hormone. It drives the taproot to come in faster and thicker, and it carries salicylic acid too, which suppresses the mold and rot that ruined so many windowsill pits. That combination is exactly why Daniel's taproots show up thick and clean at 3 weeks instead of slimy and stalled. I asked him where he learned it, and he just said the old timers used willow long before anybody sold rooting powder in a bottle. They never bought a thing. They walked to the creek. Before I let you go, I want to come back to the bigger idea behind all of this. This isn't a trick, and it's the same way of thinking Daniel has been showing me for 35 years. Stop fighting the garden and work with how nature already does things. That whole shift, the day I finally understood it, I wrote down in the very first chapter of my book, The 30-Day Amish Pest-Proof Garden Protocol. Chapter 1 is the origin story. The day I asked Daniel what I was doing wrong. If you respect that traditional wisdom and you want the complete system, not just one tip, it's $17 at backyardbillbooks.com. If you're watching on your TV, grab your phone now and point it at the QR code on screen. No rush. Take your time pulling it up, and if you're on a phone or laptop already, the link is right there in the description. So that's how you get a thick taproot in about 3 weeks and a real avocado tree from one grocery store pit. No toothpicks anywhere in sight. Daniel's been sprouting seeds the same damp cloth way for 50 years, and across plain country, it's just how a kitchen works. If this made sense to you, try the same damp cloth trick on other grocery scraps next, like a lemon seed or a mango pit, because the method carries right over. Pick one pit this week, give it a wrap and a warm, dark corner, and drop a note in the comments to let me know how the taproot comes in. I'll see you in the next one.